Welcome back, everybody, to another Non-Typicals podcast. We are recording this on November 23rd. So we're about a couple days before Thanksgiving. Actually, Thanksgiving's tomorrow. And the opening day of PA rifle season comes in this Saturday, which is the 26th. We're all pretty excited about it. Well, most of us are pretty excited about it. There's actually 4 of us that haven't filled our buck tag out of the 10 people in the non-typicals group, plus a couple people that still hunt with everyone. So the 4 of us that are in a group, we're looking forward to it. I think the 6 that have filled their buck tag already are pretty excited to, help other people get their deer and bucks down. But they're also looking forward to staying at home when the 4 of us are sitting in the torrential downpour on Saturday and Sunday. So that won't be too fun, but bucks should be moving. Hopefully they work out and everyone can fill a tag at least. So today I'm hopped on with Cody and Hunter, both from the group. They both shot really nice bucks in PA archery season this year. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, kind of have a general BS session about our seasons leading up to this point in the year. And then kind of maybe we'll touch a little bit on what they're going to do for rifle season and what I'm going to do for rifle season. And then we'll go from there. So I'm going to pass it over to Cody. We'll just start right with him.
What's going on, guys? I'm here. We're basically going to touch on, Moss asked me before we started rolling what I do early season, which he personally knows, but it's a good question to tell people how I go about my season on a farm that I hunt in Pennsylvania, which is private. There's other people that can hunt some of the stuff I do hunt, which it is what it is. Everybody has that kind of land they hunt. But I personally, whenever I run my trail cams, I start running my trail cams the first week of July. And I prefer to run my trail cams on the first early seasons, like my alfalfa fields or any kind of food source that they're hitting in the summertime patterns. I put my food, corn or something like that in front of my trail cam so I can get a picture of basically my bucks in my area to see what I'm going to be going after in the fall time, to see what's in the area. But I will say here also that there's bucks that move in all season long. And whenever I tell my story how I harvested my buck this year, I had a buck move in from up 2 miles away. So it can happen. And the only reason why I knew that is because my neighbor that was 2 miles away sent me a trail cam picture of the buck that I shot this year. And I honestly didn't know that buck was. I seen that buck actually the second week of October. I'll go into that later when we talk about it. So that's something cool to go off of too.
So I know you're the one type of guy in the group that you're kind of the all around, do everything as much as possible that you can to help have a successful season. Like you're doing the food plots, you're doing the mineral sites, you're doing the mock scrapes. So let's really break into that, and then kind of we can compare what you do versus what I do and what Hunter does throughout the summer. I know Hunter's a little bit different than us because of his work situation, but we can still break it down.
All right. So personally, I go, like I said, the first week of July, I start running my cameras to see what is in the area. And then with that situation going on too, I plant my clover plots later than most people do. And I know most people plant the clover plots probably the second or third week of May, even into July. I personally plant my clover plots when I plant my brassica plots. And people are like, well, is this giving enough time to grow? Blah, blah, blah. Well, personally, I really don't care if it's not super tall the first year. The deer are still going to hit it, and they mow it down no matter what, if it's tall or not. Because personally, I go probably the first or second week of June, I'll cut my clover plots that I planted. And I go every 4 years before I plant my clover. And I go with the AccuForage Lucky Leaf food plot because you basically run the whole food plot thing. So I basically have a test dummy to say my opinion on it. And I honestly am very, very impressed with it. And I cannot complain about anything with the clover plots. So I'm not going to lie about that. So clover plots, I'm 100% for, and it's called, that's the Lucky Leaf from AccuForage. And I planted those 2 or 3 years ago, and next year I'm gonna replant my couple of my clover plots because they just are starting to weed down, which I don't spray my clover, so that's my own fault because I'm cheap about it. So I go every 2 or 3 years, but they can go up to 4 years if you take care of them correctly. So personally, I brush hog my clover plots probably the second week of June. And people are like, why do you brush hog your clover plots? Well, that moss can go naturally more depth about it, but I personally just cut them every, like I said, the second or third week of June once. And then probably about a month before season, I cut them. And the reason why you cut your clover, is, for my sake, is it regerminates the clover to make it thicker and come in more flush. So moss can go off of that now.
Yeah, I mean that's not really the topic of the day, but I can touch on it a little bit. So basically, you want to brush hog or mow or weed eat your clover plots to, when you get the white and red tops, and so you're just adding more seed down. It's free seed. You might as well get it on the ground when it's viable seed and not rotten or eaten by a deer. And that helps regrow it thicker and whatnot. Now, since Cody doesn't plant his until later in the year, I think you're more on average like July, maybe early August.
I don't cut my first year food plots because I do plant them late. I will tell you that.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah, you let them grow for the last couple months of the season. And then, but when he's saying he's cutting his, it'd be like a 9-month plot at the end of it, because you're cutting, just say you plan August, and then you're going to go and cut it in June or May.
That's
So
what I do. That's just my personal why I do it, because it's just what I go off of. Because I basically do my food plots in all one weekend, and I don't want to do it 2 weekends. 2 or 3 weekends.
yeah, food plots can really add a big chunk of change out of your wallet. It adds up quick with lime, fertilizer, seed. I mean, honestly, seed's the cheapest thing, and people still complain about it. But
Yeah. It's the lime fertilizer that screwed everybody in my lobby. So basically, like I was telling Moss and like I was telling you guys, that's what I do my June. But I shed hunt obviously whenever I start out the season. I'm just going by what I do, like my whole season recap. So June, I cut my clover plots. Then summer comes around and I don't start putting my cameras up to the first week of July. And like I told you guys already, how I do go about that. And then when season comes around, the first week of archery, people ask me, what do I do whenever I hunt my first week of archery? I hunt the outside sources, like my food plots and my stuff. I don't go in the bedding area. That's just my personal opinion. That's just how my land lays out and how I hunt my property. So I go off of that way. Okay. So I hunt the outskirts of my food plots, the outskirts of my feeding areas where I have alfalfa field, or like I said, my food plots. And I basically just go by to see what I see, and to know if there's a mature buck that's come. I might get lucky and I might have a mature buck the first week pattern to come to my food plots, and I hunt that buck. So I go off that. So then the second week and the third week, hunting pressure gets affected, and there's an October law. People say I don't go in the bedding areas, so I honestly don't see the most activity that most people do whenever they go back in the bedding areas, because the bucks are only honestly moving like maybe 200, 300 yards from the bedding areas. And I don't go in the bedding areas so rut. That's just my personal opinion. That's what I do. So everybody has their own preferences. Moss, do you hunt the bedding areas, or what do you do early season?
well, early season, I'm not really hunting, but well, I guess scouting, you can kind of classify it as a hunt. Basically, I mean, I'm kind of new into like really getting descriptive on my strategy and stuff like that. For I'm hunting kind of a bigger wood setting. So I had a couple cameras in some like what I expected to be doe bedding areas. Sometimes it panned out on trail camera, but usually it wasn't until like I don't know, until literally middle of October. And this year is kind of my learning year for the area. So, early season, I'm kind of just looking for that hard transition out of the, for my trail cameras, I don't use bait or anything like that. But I'm going for that hard transition into like a feeding area from a higher stem count bedding area. To me, if you're lower in the elevation on a hillside, that's more than likely where you're going to find the most buck travel during the summer.
Well, a thing that I will say that you mentioned also, like me and the group, I started using mock scrapes this year, and I will say I've had a big success with the mock scrapes. Prime example from the buck that Eric harvested this year, that was basically because of my mock scrapes. So I can go into that depth if you want me to go into that depth. I tried them up where you hunt, but I also did put them in later than I did down here. So I don't know if that made a difference, but I don't know.
I'll just say it right now. I did some mock scrapes. They didn't work. They didn't work in the areas I chose. Realistically, it attracted other hunters. We can go into that a little bit later after we talk about what you get with mock scrapes. But I would say I think I did like 5 mock scrapes this year. So basically, I did a couple of mock scrapes this year up in the big wood setting, and I think I did maybe 5. And out of all those, I think I had three mock scrapes that had people on them, and the people actually, a couple of them hung stands 20 yards off of the mock scrapes, and so I just pulled that camera. It wasn't worth it. And I think maybe 1 or 2 had a respectable buck on it once or twice. So I knew there was a buck there, so I just pulled the camera and went elsewhere. So that's really my experience with mock scrapes. I know when I used to run down at Cody's farm quite a bit, it works really well. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So I will go off of that with the private land aspect, like I told you guys earlier about with Eric's hunt, and we did break all that. So basically, I started following the Whitetail Solutions and on YouTube, and he shows basically the vine scrapes. Well, the vine scrapes also go to like just even using any branch whatsoever you have. So me personally, with the branches I have, I just started doing. I know that. So we'll just go off of Eric's buck per se. I knew that there were scrapes in the area because when we drove it for rifle season, I seen scrapes in that area. And Moss is like, you need to hang a stand in there. And I never hung a stand in there. And this year was the first year we hung a stand in there. And
I said it for 2 years, dude. 2 years, you need to get a freaking stand in there for archery. And well, you finally did it.
Yeah, this year I just jumped the gun. I said, screw it, let's try it. But I also got some access points to try to go and enter the point that I knew before I couldn't enter the spot that I wanted to enter the way I did. And then midway through the season, I'll go off that. You ask permission from your neighboring properties to see if you can get permission to go enter the way that you want to enter in. We got permission, and this year I tried it and I just gunned it and it worked perfectly. So basically, for the scenario, I knew there's scrapes in there in the middle of the year. I did my pictures to see what bucks were in there in July, like I told you guys already. I seen there was mature bucks in the area. I hung the mock scrape the day that we hung the stand, which was probably, I'd say, 2 weeks before season started in PA. So like, I'd say September 15th or 16th. I don't know. That's for instance, because ours opens October 1st in PA. So we made the mock scrape that day whenever we hung the tree stand. Basically, I used buck fever synthetics and I did the licking branch spray. I basically just dig up the ground, and honestly, you could just pee in the scrape or you can buy their stuff, but I personally just pee in the scrape, and it gives the ammonia off the ground that they think that that's some kind of urine, and they'll come check it out. And whenever they check it out and they put their forehead glands on that stick, there you go. You're set because you have that buck's forehead glands on that scrape. So that's personally what I do with my mock scrapes. And I honestly do them. You can do them from August to, like I said, 2 weeks before season, or you can do them in the middle of the season if you want to, honestly.
Right. Yeah. All right. So let's kind of jump over to what Hunter does during like the summer months and stuff like that. I think he's got a cool aspect. His is a little bit different than the traditional things. So at least from people who live in PA. So let's hear from him.
Yeah. So as Moss was saying, I live out in Utah. I do wildland fire for the Forest Service. So my hunting season actually starts in the middle of August with archery elk hunting. So a little bit of how I prep for that. I'm out walking, scouting, getting glass on mountainsides, just putting miles on trying to find those wallows, those early season beddings, the rubs. and just trying to find places away from people. I mean, I run into the same stuff out there, even though there's millions of acres, everyone decides to crowd one certain spot. So I'm really just working my way into these back country areas, miles away from any roads to find the elk.
Right. So let's kind of. I mean, what do you do different when you used to live in PA? What do you do different now in Utah looking for elk? A lot of our listeners are from PA, and it's very hard to draw a bull tag in PA. So a lot of people don't get to experience that. So I think it's a cool point we can touch on.
So a lot of it is just getting the miles on. The more miles you put on, the more sign you're going to find. I like to find wallows. The big thing out there is really just getting good optics and getting in places you can see forever and just glassing mountainsides. Because in the early season, the elk are going to be high. This year, I found a lot of my bulls at 9,000 feet plus elevation, starting out in archery season. And as rifle season comes and you start getting the colder weathers out there in September, they're going to start dropping lower.
Right. And to put that elevation into perspective, I think the highest point in PA is like 29,000 or 100 feet in PA. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a huge change out there. You really don't realize how steep some things can be until you get into a nasty situation and you have to hike your ass off to get out of it.
So let's talk about the drawing. Is it a draw process out for Utah, or did you register as a resident? How did you eventually get to have a bull tag every year?
So I moved out there 3 years ago. My first season, I got in late. It was October. I wasn't able to switch my residency over. And then the summer of 2021, I was able to switch my residency over. And in the state of Utah, they have a lot of general season tags. The tag I get is the 3 season tag. So I am able to hunt any bull, any open area with a bow, rifle, and then late season muzzleloader.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I don't think a whole lot of states are like that.
No, they're not. I've been super lucky the last 2 years when those tags became available. I've been on fires and was lucky enough to get phone service quick enough to get it. In Utah, they only give 17,500 of those tags out, and they go within hours, 3, 4 hours from the time they go on sale. They're sold out.
Right. And so what's the price point for one of those tags out there as a resident?
So, as a resident, the 3 season tag I get is $150, and that allows me to hunt archery, rifle, and muzzleloader. But they do have over-the-counter tags as well for archery season, which runs you $50.
Okay. So what do you know off the top of your head what the non-residents would be?
I believe non-residents is somewhere in the range of $500 to $600 for a bull elk tag.
And that's probably a draw system as well, isn't it?
They give a few over-the-counter tags, but nothing like they give residents. But for the most part, to get a really good unit where you have the opportunity to kill a really good bull, and a lot of the guide services are set up, you're looking at a draw system.
Right. Okay. So obviously between my summer scouting is pretty similar to Cody's, just mainly hardwood timbers. And Cody has a little bit more ag down south where he is. But the difference between me and Cody and what Hunter's doing is major difference. And I think that's really cool that Hunter gets to go out there every year and at least attempt to go and get a bull. I know one year you're going to get one.
Yeah, it's a matter of time. This year I was a lot more successful in seeing bulls, but never was able to close that gap on them. The first 2 weeks of this archery season, I was in northern Idaho on a fire, so I wasn't able to actually hunt the bulls that I was scouting all summer, and they were actually pushed out of the area by other hunters.
Yeah, from what I understand, if you push a deer out, it might take a couple of days or a few weeks to come back. But from what I've heard from, the select few people I know that go out to Colorado or Montana to hunt bulls, as soon as they're pushed, they're not coming back till the next year.
Yeah, it seems like you have that one chance to get that bull killed, and if you end up screwing it up, it's gone.
All right, now, so my question for Hunter, since you live out in Utah, do you have anybody in Pennsylvania that helps you out with whenever you come back to PA? So for this year, I know that I help out usually for you for the most part to find some deer, but I know your dad helps out for deer too. So what do you go off of? Like, does your dad send you trail cam pictures? I know I personally send you trail cam pictures of the bucks I'm seeing. Now, how does it go about with your dad and you? Do you talk to him on a daily basis whenever you're out in Utah? Like, what's it like being away from your family? Do you miss PA? Like, how's it? I guess I never personally been away from home. I'm planning on being away from home here pretty soon with his fiance, having a kid. We're talking about maybe moving out to where she lives. I want you to go through how it's like to go move from from where we live at. You and I know we only live maybe 2 miles apart. How's it feel to move from this area? Because like I personally don't want to move, but I'm going to do what's best for my family. So tell me basically step by step how it was your first year to now, how it all went down.
Yeah, so all summer, I know you, my dad, and a couple of our neighbors, you guys are always just sending me trail cam pictures of these monster bucks you guys are getting on camera. And it hits a little harder than usual because I'm not able to be here scouting, hanging stands, running cameras, running mock scrapes with you guys. But I like giving you guys phone calls. You guys like to give me updates on how your scouting's going, what you're seeing. And I really appreciate that because it kind of keeps me in the loop and really kind of makes me feel a part of being here, even though I'm really not.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing for me. Like, my fiance is trying to get me to move out towards where she lives at. And I'm like, I don't know if I really want to, but hearing from somebody else saying that, hey, yeah, it's not that bad from you, because I know you haven't been here for the past 2 or 3 years, with you moving out to Utah, it makes it honestly better. But I know the fiance and I had a big long discussion that, hey, I'm still going to come out here on the weekend. So you don't have that opportunity because you have how far of a drive is it from Utah to PA?
Yeah, so I just drove it and it took me 2 days. It's a 28-hour drive. So it's pretty far, completely different area. And like with you moving out there, it's going to be a big change, learning all new areas. It's really cool though. It gives you an idea of like what else is out there, getting away from the area you're in right now. And it really just gives you time to just go out, walk different woods that you've never hunted, never even thought about hunting before.
So personally, I know I went to Southern Ohio whenever I did that. Basically, so you're not hunting deer, you're hunting elk for say. What are you looking for whenever you go elk hunting out west? If I was going to go on a week hunt, what would you be looking for? Basically, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, I know personally, whenever I go out to where she lives at, I can't, I don't know if I need to look into the area, but I don't know if I can bait or not. I know there's going to be a lot of public areas, which I don't think you're not allowed to bait on public areas, any of that. So basically, I know for freaking out west, what are you going about on finding new areas? Are you using Onyx or what are you using to find out new areas? Basically, is what I'm trying to get at.
So I like to sit down on a computer, look at Onyx. Onyx has a really cool feature where you can highlight areas where there's no road access. And whenever I find areas they show up purple and white where there's limited to no road access, I really focus on those north facing slopes because they just don't get the sunlight. So it's going to be cooler, it's going to be wetter. That's where you're going to find a lot of your wallows. I like to find thick aspen stands. Aspen need water. So in there has to be a wallow somewhere. I really focus on those wallows going into the beginning of the season and into the rut. A wall is a lot like a scrape for a whitetail. It's where they go in, they'll thrash around, they'll mark it with their scent, and then you just have other bulls coming in hours or days later to check those wallows to see what's coming around.
Yeah, I don't think a whole lot of people, and I was thinking about this earlier. You even mentioned it that like the wallow for elk is very similar to a whitetail scrape. Um, and it pretty much is the same thing other than the elk. They're not like they do paw at it, but they're not digging that wallow like a whitetail is just scraping the ground. They're gonna dig it deeper to get it colder water and stuff like that. But it's just a little bit different. But it's a good metaphor as to understanding what, the little bit of difference between a wallow and a scrape.
Yeah, a lot of those wallows actually are filled with water, and it's a really cool spring coming out of a mountainside. So they like to hit those in the middle of the day when it's cooler temperatures in that water, when it's the heat of the day. It kind of get in there. It's kind of like what a turkey does when they dust bath, but it's a water source for them. So they just get in there, roll around. They're stinkier than hell. And when you walk up to one that hasn't been hit for a couple days, you can actually see those oils and the scents on top of the water.
So how about let's get into like the actual hunting this year. Let's start with Cody. Let's break it down from almost day one until you eventually harvested a really nice PA buck.
So day one, I took the fiance, Eric and I. It was a good morning, and then it turned into a washout. So we decided to go to the honey hole, we call it. Basically, I put a food plot with brassica, clover, and then we had a cornfield behind it. We had some bucks come in just with how nasty the weather was. The wind was swirling so bad with that front coming in that the buck caught our wind, just didn't give her opportunity. And basically, that was her end of her season because, well, she's pregnant with our daughter that we're going to have here probably any time now. I'm guessing I think it's going to be either my birthday or Christmas, but she's due in January 1st. So that's basically how her season went. And she basically got told that, hey, you should just relax and just chill out. So her hunting season was the first day. We saw a decent little 6-point that she would have been happy to harvest because we knew she was pregnant and we were just trying to get her on here. So that's how her season went. So whenever that goes about, my first day I took her, my priority was then on to Eric. Eric was working still at the waste management area. So he was working on the landfill side of things. So he was working as a garbage man. He had time to hunt on the weekends, and he had vacation coming up. And then eventually down the road, as we talked in the last podcast, he became an insurance agent, was working 9 to 5. And my season basically came down to that I was filming Eric, trying to get him a buck because he only could hunt weekends. And I had vacation coming up that I knew I was going to take. We didn't know Eric was going to get a new job. So basically, I was just trying to get footage for us as the group non-typicals. So I was basically going with Eric every single day that he could go out and I could go out and we could match it up to just film him. And basically, the first day it was a bust, like I said. Then the second weekend was just, I honestly didn't see a mature deer till the day he shot his deer. And it wasn't honestly anything mature, but it was a good 2.5, 3-year-old deer. And he was happy with that because he got the new job. And that was, I believe, October, 27th or 28th? It was 27th, I believe. I'm not sure what day it was that month.
For some reason, I feel like the 29th. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it was before Halloween. We called it the Halloween buck because basically I didn't see anything was daylight on my cameras. I had a nocturnal buck, basically how my season was going. I was running my trail cams. I had good bucks, like I said, early season. I was going after probably around the farm. I had probably 140 to 130 inch deer. I honestly haven't measured the buck I shot, but it was a solid buck that I honestly how it goes down. I'll talk to it later. Basically, I'll go on how it all went down was on that day. Eric, I'll basically go into a little bit of depth of how it all went down with my season. I took him out. We were going to go after the buck I had on trail cam. We had a mature deer. The one was marginal. I did not want to bump that deer out of the area. So we basically went to the stand where I took my buddy the second week and we saw a couple good bucks. So I knew there was good bucks in the area. The scrape started opening up. I checked the trail cam. I had a buck that day that him and I checked it. It hit that scrape. Well, come back to it. That was the buck that Eric shot. So I knew that buck was in the area. So then we had the cold front coming that weekend whenever Eric and I went in there. The one was wrong for the spot that I want to go after the deer because I had a cell camera. And the crappy part of the cell camera is it stopped working for a week. I thought, oh crap, I ain't getting any good bucks on trail cam. Well, come to find out, my SD cards and my cell camera were messed up. It wasn't taking pictures. So I don't know how long it was. So I swapped the cameras. Well, my shooter buck was there the day I swapped the cell camera chips because my cell camera chip was messed up. And that was terrible. It sucked so bad. So then whenever that went down, like I was saying, we're backtracking again. Eric and I went in the spot because the wind was marginal. I didn't want to bump that deer out because it hit that scrape that next morning. So him and I went in there with I believe it was a southwest wind. The wind wasn't great for the spot, but ARCHERY was in there. So I was like, there's some solid bucks in there. The wind was good for that stand. We went in there that morning. That buck came in, gave him an opportunity. He shot it. He wanted me to shoot it. I was like, man, you don't have time. I have off all next week. Let's shoot this buck. So then whenever he shot that buck, he came back. We got the footage. It was awesome hunt. It was a solid PA pointer. Didn't have very big growl times, but honestly, the last week of PA season, I would have shot it. It was a solid buck. I was happy for him. Got it on film. And that's what I'm all about. Honestly, I don't really care about myself till I get some good footage of somebody. So that's how my season went from the first month of October. I get serious probably this first week of November to right when he shot his deer, Halloween to November. The second week of November, I like November 2nd to the 12th in that time frame. That's just personally how the buck activity on my farm is. I don't know why, but it just comes in that time frame. So what do you do, Moss? Like, how did your season go so far from October to November for you?
So honestly, it was a very slow. Like, I don't know. It started off pretty good. After the first sit in the morning, I was pretty confident with what I got from summer scouting and whatnot. And then obviously it kind of trickled down. Not trickled it. It went downhill pretty quickly. As pressure started rising more, and the deer just really realized what was going on. Trail cameras really died off. A couple bucks here and there. A lot of nocturnal stuff. All in all, throughout the entire season, I probably seen more bucks than does, and I probably only could have shot 1 or 2 does. So I don't know how to take it. I mean, no matter what, I'm learning the area, so I'm happy with it. But other than that, I mean, it's just I'm just learning. That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, like, man, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I've hunted big woods with the whole PA aspect to Ohio. I hunt a week, and I'm not gonna lie to you, big woods is tough. Like, whenever I went out to Ohio, I hunted for a whole week and I saw 3 deer. So I know what you're going with, like how the whole big woods aspect. In the first year, you're gonna fail, and that's how it is. Anybody that says, "Yeah, man, I got 150-inch deer," most likely it's probably with a rifle. But if you did do it the first year, I give you props, man. You are a killer, that's for sure. But it also is a lot of luck too, like I just said. If you get lucky, but if you consistently do it, congratulations to you. I give you a pat on the back. You are a straight downright killer if you're killing 150-inch deer in PA public lands every year. To even 110-inch deer in PA every year for public lands. I'll give you a pat on the back too. Because that is a very, very good challenge. I'm not gonna lie to anybody.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I take my wife Taylor out with me almost every single time. It's very rarely that we're not together hunting. And I was kind of like Cody, cameraman first. Let her shoot. And then everyone gets that way. Once it kind of gets to the end of archery season, you're like, I don't know, Taylor. I think I'm shooting first tonight, and then I don't see any deer. But my conclusion from the season for myself is I need to stop being so damn indecisive. I think that was my biggest struggle. I need to think of a spot, and if I think of that spot, that's where I need to go.
I feel like that's anywhere. That's anywhere you hunt, and like I even do that in private land where I'm at on the farms. And I know Alex and Gary even talk about whenever they hunt their public land, which we'll obviously talk to their harvest this year. I know that Garrett talked to me a couple times saying, "Oh, I should have went here, man. I had big buck on trail cam after." Like Garrett's different than Alex. I know Garrett pulls his cameras way later than. I don't even think he still pulls his cameras. Garrett personally, he's my brother, and I talk to him quite a bit. So off those guys, public land. I didn't hunt public land this year. Last year I did hunt public land because Garrett gave me a heads up where to go, like what area. So I was thankful for that because honestly, last year there's nothing decent on the farm. And this year I put Garrett on the farm because he was having a tough time. But then he just kept on toughing it out and he harvested his buck where he harvested his buck on public land. So basically, I'm thankful that I have Garrett to help me out and put me in a good area if there's nothing decent on the farm. And vice versa for Garrett. I can tell him where to go on the farm whenever I harvest my deer, you know. But like I will say personally, whenever I hunt that week in Ohio, and that's just going off my experience with just hunting a week, you just got to keep on hunting on your hunt public land personally. This is just my experience. You keep on hunting until you find a fresh sign. Once you find a fresh sign, you hunt the fresh sign.
Right.
So
And that's the thing. So like that really annoyed me with this big woods hunting. So Taylor was just like, "Yeah, I'll shoot the first, pretty decent legal buck. Nothing like on borderline legal. It's got to be definitely legal." She was really wanting to kill one with her new bow. She hasn't killed one with her bow in, I don't know, maybe 7 years. So she really wanted to do it. And like when we'd see deer, we'd be up in the saddle and maybe they're 80 yards to our left or right or wherever. And you'd sit in that same spot a couple times and that deer does the same thing. You come in a different way, you hang on that path that he was coming, 25, 30 yards, and he's under the tree that you were just at 2 days ago. I mean, it's annoying, but it's fun. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's one upside to you guys in PA and Utah last year. They outlawed the use of trail cams during hunting season. So all that intel you have built up out of season just kind of gets cut off the first day of archery. They no cell cams, none of that stuff's allowed anymore in hunting season.
Yeah, and I honestly, the way PA does their laws, I wouldn't doubt if it's going to be some type of regulation down the road, maybe in 10, 15 years, who knows. It depends how advanced this technology really gets. But I will say, like, it was weird. Like the same week that Cody was having issues with his spy point cell camera, I was having issues with every single one of my spy points. And I just said, screw it. I threw them in the back of my car, never touched them again. And I went to Walmart and got a couple reveals. Dude, they work really good. That being said, it's like, is it ethical? My personal opinion, it really is ethical because even if I get a picture of a deer where I can drop everything I'm doing right now, get my hunting stuff, and go after that deer, you have to be a pretty damn good hunter to be able to understand exactly where that buck's going to be in an hour, hour and a half by the time you get there. To be able to base it off of getting that picture and getting out there to kill that deer that same exact afternoon or morning.
well, I'll go all of that. So my personal opinion going off this subject is, yes, I agree with you 100%. But then there's some people that are legit hunting an area where they put their trail cams, their cell cameras per se, 365 degrees around them. And then they have a picture of a stud buck. This guy made a big post about it on Facebook, and I was like, all right, that's kind of crappy, but at the same time, it takes a little bit of skill. So he made a post saying that he had a camera 1,000 yards away from him. He got a stud buck. It was there in the rut. And then he realized, all right, the stud buck's here. It popped up on his cell camera. It sent it right to his phone. He started grounding. That buck came into range after he grounded that deer into 30 yards, and he shot him. I think that's kind of like, I'm not saying it's cheating because I would do the same thing if I was in that situation if it wasn't illegal. But at the same time, does that give really that deer a chance? What do you think? Let's go off that.
I'll take that first over Hunter, but I think it is. It's not really cheating because trust me, there's a lot of times when you see any type of buck and you grunt at it during even that pre-rut chasing phase or even the actual rut, they'll look at you and they don't give two shits. They'll go the other way. So I think it's a lot of luck. That's all hunting is, I think.
I don't think it's unethical or anything. I know it takes a lot of skill to be able to grunt a buck in let alone 100 yards. I mean, that guy that grounded it in 1,000 yards. That's crazy. I mean, I think I agree with you, Moss. Like it's a lot of luck.
Like, dude, I swear, I think I've maybe seen 12 different bucks this year, and I think they were all legal but one. There wasn't a single one that I grunted in, or called in, or bleated in, rattled in. It's just for some reason, I could not get any interaction with calling this year.
I grunted one buck in, and he was good enough for me, buddy.
Yeah. So before we keep going into these rabbit holes, let's hear about let's hear the actual story of Cody's buck. I think this is a pretty cool story. I'm gonna bust your balls a little bit, Cody, on the one buck, but we'll talk about it.
So the first night that I officially have worried about myself. So I get in the stand. Let me look real quick and see where we're at because I know I had a picture of it. It was. Oh, here we go. I'm looking right now as we speak. Let me see a video of it. It was November 7th when I shot my deer on a Monday. That deer that I saw was November 5th is how it all started out. So I'll say it all for how it all went down. So that Thursday, I went out to the same spot that I harvested my buck at. And basically it all went down how I went to the stand that night. It was running late. I got off work early. I told Moss and everybody, hey guys, I'm running late. I'm gonna just get up in the stand. It's the rest going on. Everybody's saying they're seeing chasing, blah blah blah. It's Thursday. I got off work at like 4:30. Got to the stand by 5. I'm in the stand. I start grunting. I have a buck and I just hear running through the leaves coming at me. Then I hear a snort. I'm like, oh crap, I'm screwed. So then after I hear the snoring, I'm like, oh, I might as well grunt and can. I grunt and can, and I hear this car slowing down up by the road because I hunt right by a road, probably about maybe 500 to 1,000 yards from the road. And it's like an open field with CRP. So I'm sitting there, and this car comes by. I look up and I see this decent 8-pointer coming in, sneaking into my grunt call. Well, believe it or not, the buck that snorted with I think he was chasing doe at the time being, was behind me running in 2. I'm like, that's the biggest cluster of crap that could ever go down. So then that all went down. Never got a shot at the buck. I got some footage of it real quick. It was a decent 8-pointer, nothing that I really was interested in shooting. It was a solid buck by no means. And then I had the buck behind me come out. It was this funky buck that bought right past up. So that all went down. I had a good interaction. There was a hot doe in the area. I knew that. So Eric shot his buck, like we said already, that Saturday. So Eric and I went that morning. It was Saturday, November, I believe I said that already. It was the 7th. So he shot that buck on November 5th is whenever I had that encounter. Him and I went out that day. Sorry. I had the dates mixed up right now. So November 5th, it all went down. So I'm in the stand. It's 80 degrees. Everybody's like, dude, you're wasting your time. It's freaking hot as crap. I was like, you know what? It's a rut. Everybody's saying, everybody on podcasts I listen to, just get down in the stand, get your time in the stand, blah, blah, blah. It's a rut. It's getting ready to fire up. So I'm sitting there, and it's freaking 4 o'clock, dude. I look over, and I see this freaking stud. I'm like, holy crap, this is a stud. I'm freaking out. I grunt to it. It's so freaking windy, dude. It was that day. It was Saturday, like I said, November 5th. I'm telling you, I swear to God, it was blowing 15, 16 mile per hour winds. The wind was perfect for me whenever I get up in the stand. So whenever it's so windy, I see that buck. It starts heading towards away from me. I try grunting, like I said. It just picks his head up and looks right at me. Doesn't care. It's a good buck. I know that. So then it's starting to go away from me. So dire need situation. I turn on the GoPro. I hit the rattle antlers, and it just, when a deer's coming in, when I regrount at it. Just personally, I've had it with time. Like just personal experience. I knew the deer was coming in as soon as I hit the antlers. I smack him hard. I tickled him. He picked his head up, turned straight in, and I didn't get it all on footage. But then eventually, whenever it came into range, it was 38 yards away. So then I get ready, and in the video, everybody's like, did you shoot at it? Because, like, in the video, it looks like it's perfect shot, but there's a limb in the way. I didn't cut the limb. 2 or 3 years before when I hung the stand, everybody's like, you should have cut that limb, you should have cut that limb. Well, I would have covered the stand, and it came down to bite me in the butt because that deer was in the perfect shooting lane if I would have cut the limb. Didn't cut the limb, came in a range, 38 yards. I tried range find it. I tried pulling it back. In the video, whenever you see it, and Jolt's loved it, I had people say, did you shoot that deer? Did you shoot that deer? No, I didn't shoot that deer. That's me with my stabilizer. I was trying to pull back and try to shoot the deer. So that was November 5th. It was 80 degrees when I called him because I had a picture of the buck on the trail cam. It was 80 degrees. And everybody said it was pointless for going out in this weather. It was too hot. And I shot. I didn't shoot at, but I saw. It was all 130. It was all 130-inch deer. So I'll go off that. That's how that went down.
I agree. I think if that right side G2 wasn't broke off, it probably would have hit 130. So basically, it was high 120s. I mean, the mass went the whole way up through its antlers. It was what, 10? Was it a 10 even with the broken G2?
Yeah, I had 6 on one side and 4 on the other.
So I mean, this buck was giant. I remember sitting in my saddle, and Cody's like sent a video. I think you actually called me. You were pretty upset. I've sat in that stand. I haven't sat in it this year, but I really think you could have shot that buck. I do. I think if you really, I mean, it was hard because you were filming. That takes a lot out of you, and the buck pinned you immediately. And he did smell you, I think. I don't know if he knew exactly what the hell you were, but he smelled something and he didn't like it. But he stood there long enough, and I think I don't know. I think you could have tried to like kneel down a little bit to get under that branch. And I think you might have been able to, but who knows? He might have saw you, you know?
I mean, I give Cody a lot of props of having a buck at that caliber, just not feeling comfortable with the shot and not trying to pinch anything.
Right. I
wounding
give
a
him
deer,
that
like,
too. Yep. That takes a lot. And I know he was pretty upset about it, and you still ended up with a really good buck. So, I mean, he'll be bigger next year, I think.
Yeah, if he makes it, PA. The rifle season is hard on him. Here we go, boys. I'm not gonna lie. The Orange Army is out there, and I honestly, it's gonna sound crappy for me to say this, but I'll say this plain and simple right now. It's just my personal opinion. I think private land gets hit harder than the public land, and that's just my gut saying this. And I personally have experienced it. Private land gets hit way harder than public land because people think, oh, private land, I could be lazy. I don't have to go as far back in, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I agree with them 100%. I hunt private land. I don't have to work as much harder, but there's farms around me that let people hunt it. So if it does end up dead, it does end up dead. But if it doesn't end up dead, yes, I agree that the buck could definitely push 140 to 150 next year. I would not say no to that 100%. Now, with the situation, yes, in the video, I will say it looks way worse. But like Moss said, the wind was blowing perfect. I rattled. The deer was coming on a string. The wind changed because that day the front was coming in. I had 15 to 20 mile per hour winds. The wind switched. In the video, you can see it was way alert. Yeah, it's 38 yards away. The camera's at my waist because whenever I self-film, I'm self-filming. I'm not by myself. I don't have a camera guy with me. The camera's to my waist. And everybody's like, dude, you should have shot that deer. You should have had open lane. Well, whenever I went to go pull back my bow, it's opposite side of my shooting side. So I'm on my right-hand side. I'm a left-hand, like I'm a right-hand shooter. So my bow hand's on my left-hand side. I couldn't get over a limb. And everybody's in the videos like, oh, you should have had a shot. You should have shot. I had so many people saying that, blah, blah, blah. Well, where my bow to go across, because it's opposite side, I have a camera arm that's going across my body. That's down to my waist, which would have hit my stabilizer, and that's what I end up hitting whenever people think I shoot in the video, which I didn't shoot. It was me hitting my stabilizer because I'm trying to pull back the bow, and it sucked. I was trying to do everything I could to shoot this deer, dude. It was a solid buck for PA. Well, in the situation, I couldn't get the shot, like Moss said, and I'm not doubting anybody by saying that I should have shot it by any means, but it was probably one of the sickening situations because now this is year 3 or 4 for me, and I've had shooter deer in range, and I did not get a shot at it, and I'm discouraged. I called Moss. I'm like, dude, this is bull crap. I want to quit hunting. Dude, I've been now this is I think I told Lawson, I said, this is year 4 for me. It all started in Ohio. I had a stud in range. I couldn't get a shot. Then I go the following year, I had this buck, and it was in 25 range. Hunter freaking smokes a buck. Then I mess around with a grunt call, and this one comes downwind of me, and I can't get a shot at this one. And now here comes this buck, and again, it's like year 3, and this happens to me. I'm like, dude, I want to quit hunting. I give up. I'm done. I'm done. I told everybody I'm done. We'll go off how Boss reacts to my situation where I'm just frustrated as crap. So
Pretty sure I literally just told Cody, just keep hunting, it'll happen. That's my mentality. That's what I tell myself, like, yeah, I might not punch a tag this year. It's gonna happen maybe next year, maybe 15 years down the road, but you're gonna kill a stud one day if you keep at it.
yeah, I agree. Like if I keep on pushing to where I'm at, I've had like the chances of shooting a mature buck, so I can't complain with that at all. I'm basically gonna keep on pushing like I did. And thank God I pushed this year. I mean, I shot a solid PA buck. I'm not gonna complain about that. So with Saturday being super hot temperatures, I had this mature buck come in. I looked at Monday because I have my rutcation per se. That starts on I took the 7th to the 12th, I believe, or 7th to the 11th. So it's Monday to Friday. I took off. Last year I couldn't take off because the guy that I worked with took off that week. So I got first dibs this year, and I got that week off because I like the 7th through the 11th in my area. Just personal preference. There's nothing like everybody has their different areas. So I looked at the wind. I had a west wind, which was great for the stand. So I'm sitting there, and I'll basically just go into depth on my hunt for that day. It was November 7th. I always have good luck the 7th and 8th in just my personal area where I'm at in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, on farm area. So that morning I get in the stand. I'm self-filming. My dad wanted to go with me, but the stand was way too tough. I'm worried that his big ass ain't gonna fit in there with me a tree stand. Like I'm telling you right now, I could barely fit in this tree stand. I wear a harness very seldom. Like whenever I have my safety belt with my harness, yes, I'm tied in, but with my hang-ons for the most part, I have a harness on. But for this stand, I definitely needed to because it was a sketchy stand. So I'm in the stand, breaks daylight. I see this big mature doe come across the field. The only reason why I hunt the stand now is because Saturday morning, this all turns back into Eric and I get out of the stand Saturday around like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. We check the trail cams in this area. I have the stud dog and a doe Friday morning when I had a mandatory meeting for work. So then I hunt that stand. I grunt and rattled that buck in, like I already told you guys the story. I come back in to the same area because that night before Sunday on November 6th, I had the buck that I grunted I didn't get a shot at come by the trail cam where I'm at this morning. So I come in the stand. I see the mature doe come in. I have no luck. She just comes through. Then I hear thrashing to my left. So I grab my grunt call and I start grunting. Thrashing gets louder. So I know it sounds like a big buck making a rub on a tree and just smacking his antlers. Next thing you know, I hear, I'm like, holy crap, here he comes. He's gonna come right into like 30 yards, 20 yards, like in the food plot, because I'm hunting a kill plot per se. It's just clover plot that's surrounded by a bunch of honeysuckle. So I look up and it's a PA gray squirrel, the old gray squirrel that freaking screws everybody up. You get all freaking excited, all jacked up, and it comes in, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I'm sitting there, time goes by, and it's not even 5 minutes from after I hear they're raking. I hear behind me like tickling in the antlers. So me being the jack wagon I am, I turn around and I look over, and it's the buck that I harvest. It's a big 8-pointer. So I grunted earlier. He hits the scrape, and this is how it all replays. It's crazy how it all goes down. So the second week of season, I get off work late in the same stand. I climb up. This is the second time I'm in the tree. The same exact buck I see the second week of October, hitting the same scrape. I grunted and canned at him because I called him deer earlier in the season. This buck had nothing to do with me. So now we're November 7th. I grind a can. He hits the scrape. I'm filming it. And I send in the group chat, hey, guys, do you think I should shoot this buck or not?
And I'm like the only one that's awake. And again,
Yep.
I rip into him like, put your phone down, put your camera where you think this deer is gonna be, and shoot this freaking deer. Like it's a really nice buck. Like why you shouldn't even have to ask that question.
Well, me being the person I am, and like I was going off of this the second week of October, I didn't do the deer. So I'm like, well, it starts coming in, and I get all jacked up. So basically, how the hunt went down, like I already told you guys, hits the scrape, comes across this field on a neighboring property. It gets in the stick piece, and I hit a can call from Primo's 3 times. And I did that just because I wanted it could go right or left. So I wanted to come towards me. It must have heard the can call. In the video, you can see where it hits the can call. So it's coming on a string. I know it's coming in. I get all jacked up. Well, I pull back my bow, and believe it or not, there's a limb that goes over top of my head. And whenever I go to pull back, I couldn't come to full anchor point. So the limb's in the way, so I got to lean forward. I got screwed by the wind now 3 different times because the wind screws me every time because the deer are going to come downwind whenever you call to him. So he's trying to come downwind to me. But the only reason why he didn't come downwind to me because I mowed these brush hog, these paths in this. So my food plots, I brush hog paths into CRP/honeysuckle, which I brush hog this path into 20 yards. I have a scrape, which he already hit a scrape. So now I'm going to know that he's hitting the scrape line. The wind's blowing towards the scrape, so I get the camera set up. I pull back. Like I said, the limb's in the way. I'm rushing everything. I get all jacked up. I have it on camera. Make sure it's in the frame. So I'm looking at the camera, still filming. Gets in the frame. I shoot. I think it's a terrible shot. I call Moss. I call my dad. I'm all jacked up. I'm freaking out. I'm like, dude, I shot a good buck. It's a good BA buck. I'm all jacked up like anybody else would be. So get on the phone. We all look at it. Everybody said, it's a dead deer, which I knew it was a dead deer. I thought it was guts liver. I'm freaking out. I'm sad. Like, I'm all depressed because I made a bad shot. So my buddy Chris said he works weird hours because he does stuff online for his work. He works from home. He's like, man, don't freak out. I'm going to come over on the big screen. And I already sent to Moss. I sent to my dad. Everybody's dead deer. Stop freaking out. Stop freaking out. When I shoot in the video, you can see I don't get very much penetration. I'm shooting a mechanical broadhead. It's quartering to me. So I wanted to shoot it before it got to the point where I didn't hit the front shoulder, so I had to aim back a little bit. And with the way the angle is, I talked to the guy that processed the deer for me tonight, actually, and he said I hit the back hip. So whenever I hit the back hip of the quartering to be shot, I was going to give the deer at least liver to gut shot. They say give 12 to 24 hours. A liver shot's 4 to 6 hours or 4 to 8 hours. So with the liver shot being 4 to 6 hours, I knew for sure I hit guts. So I left it lay. Moss and Taylor, luckily, were coming down that day. I believe they were coming at noon to pick up something for their job in DuBois, which is only 10 minutes from my house. So I was lucky enough that they were going to come in. So my buddy and I, we go eat breakfast at the Dutch Pantry, which is not very far from my house. We just relax, give the time deer. We look at it on the big screen. We slow down very slow to realize that it honestly was a lot better shot than we realized it was a better shot. So, and that's how basically it went down to, if you hit a deer marginal, you're not sure for sure, let it lay. So I'm gonna just leave it at that. So Moss can go into depth what he thought in the whole situation.
So he sent me the video off of his camera while he's still in the stand. And I'm like, oh, that's a pretty shitty shot. Like, what? There was like 12 inches of arrow still sticking out. And I'm like, I don't know. No matter what, just leave it. Me and Taylor are coming down anyway. I can come out, look at the footage. I can slow it way down on my computer. You know, just make sure there's enough time, and we are for sure that he clipped the liver, because liver will expire it a lot quicker than just guts. And I was really hoping that he hit the diaphragm, because as soon as he hits that diaphragm, there's no compression for the lungs or the blood to pump. So that makes it really quick. We get down there. We had lunch, went back to your house. We probably didn't get out to where you shot until like 2 o'clock. Me and
Yeah,
your dad.
So that
Actually,
right
the
there.
smartest thing that you and your dad did, and I was actually very surprised, is you just backed out. You met your dad on the road, and you went on that road kind of parallel to where he was running towards, and looked to see if you found any blood on the road. Because if you knew he crossed the road, we'd give him more time. Because that's like what, 80, 100 yards from where you shot him. So if he went that far, it's probably guts.
Yeah,
So
that was the big thing I will say that we took from the situation my dad dying. From the tree stand to the road is easily 250 yards. So we checked the road and we knew that the deer didn't cross for sure. That's just us quick looking. We're not scanning it very, very close by no means, because we don't want to. Let's first say the deer's 50 yards from the road, we don't want to balk it. So we're just in our vehicle like a normal car, going by about 10 miles per hour when we're going to breakfast. We don't see any blood crossing the road, so we knew that it had been in that piece. We looked at it pretty good enough with the leaves on the ground at this time of the year that we knew that the deer didn't cross the road. So then that's when I told Moss, hey, it did cross the road. So that was the number one thing that we took from the situation, I will say, from that on.
right. So when we get out to the track job, me and your dad, we go to where you shot it. You and Taylor actually stood on the road just in case for some reason he was still alive and we bumped him out. Maybe you could at least see where he crosses the road or get another shot at him. So we kind of meander through, all those paths in there made it kind of hard. We didn't find any initial blood, and probably 20 yards from where your stand was, we found the arrow, and we're like, okay, that's a decent sign. It was broke off and whatnot. And so from that point, we were just trying to find a direction, trying to find blood, and we could not. I mean, we called you and Taylor down. We probably spent maybe 3 hours just army crawling through all this. I mean, it's just herbaceous grass, so it's really hard to track anyway. And from the footage, we knew there wasn't going to be an exit hole, so we knew it was just going to be pin drop blood. So, and I mean, me, Cody, Taylor, Big Mike, we were all army crawling these paths. We couldn't find anything. And because of the angle of the hit, we really thought there would be blood higher up on like sticks and higher grass and stuff, and we never found anything. So I told Cody, I said, before we really screw this up, call in a tracking dog. It's better to be safe. I think he's within 200 yards of your shot, but just in case, because
Yeah,
it's really thick and nasty in there, and if he was in that thick and nasty stuff, we could easily pass it up and never see it.
yeah, that's something I will go off for sure. That I know that in the video we have seen that the back hip was obviously, and you can see in the video where he did a whole circle if you slow it down, and he was not going to go very far. So I called 3 different tracking dogs, and they said, well, with the daylight saving times, because this is what daylight saving times just went into effect, that tracking dog might not be there till the next morning. So I'm over here we already left delay for 8 hours. It was a hot day. I'm like, I need to find this deer as fast as I can. I know it's dead. There's no doubt about it, because I know I hit liver. I know I hit guts for sure because of the angle. So I'm like, Moss, they're not going to be here till tomorrow. I have enough people to grid search this. I said, let's just start doing circles from the arrow. And they're like, no, man, I don't think we should, blah, blah, blah. So then Moss and I this is crazy how this all goes down. So Moss and I were sitting here at the property line from where I shot the deer. And we're looking at this field. And Moss goes, Cody, is that milkweed over there? I said, man, I know this field like the back of my hand. I've seen it day after day. I said, there's no milkweed in this field. So Moss can go from this point where he says it's milkweed.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the 5th time we've all, like, me individually have looked at this field. Everyone else has looked at it, scanned it from the property line, and I just for some reason the way the sun hit, it just stood out, and all I could see was about that much, and I'm like, that looks like a pot of milkweed. And Cody was a little bit higher in elevation. He's like, no, I don't think that is, and he had permission to get over there, and he started moving closer, and he's like, holy shit, that's him. And it was. It was crazy how much that buck was hidden in that tall grass.
Yeah, like for example, for people, there's a dip. So like from the main road, you could see the steer. Like there's no doubt that I couldn't see the steer from the main road. But the way the dip was in the field and where I was in the tree stand, I could see the steer from my tree stand. I was so jacked up and so focused on trying to get the film down for everybody that I didn't follow the deer. And he honestly was only dead from my tree stand, maybe 100 yards. So like he was dead before the footage and everything all went down and I climbed out of the tree. So he was honestly only 100 yards from my tree stand, if that. It's because I could see my tree stand right where he died at.
Right. So basically what this deer did, instead of running through all the thick stuff, he took the path of least resistance, went straight for the first opening to that field and tried to make it across, and he never made it across. He never bedded down between anything. And when Cody ended up actually gutting this deer, he clipped a lung, he punched the diaphragm, he hit the liver, and he hit the guts. I think the only reason you had so much arrow sticking out of him is because that hip. And I don't know, I feel like it just bounced off the hip, to be honest.
I talked to the guy that processed the deer for me tonight because I just picked it up tonight. He said, your broadhead blew up as soon as you hit that hip. So he had to cut around all that bull crap in the hip. He said that mechanical broadhead, the spring broke and everything broke as soon as you hit that, punctured that hip. So, and for knowing that information, I'm only shooting 70 pounds at maybe, I'd say maybe, I'm just being generous for myself, maybe 300 feet per second. That's high for 70 pounds of mechanical broadhead with a 2-inch cut. That's not very much, like for the speed wise, but the penetration for like that bat, how close it was, I hit a solid bone, and that's why the broadhead blew up, and that's why I only got 12 inches penetration with that 2-inch cut. That's the only reason why he went that far, is because I had that big of cut, and that's why I didn't get the penetration I got, because I only had a 2-inch cut with that much poundage and not much like the speed. It slowed down the air enough that I had that kinetic energy where it smacked that hip, and I just didn't get the whole way through. Like, I don't even think I would have got through with a fixed blade, honestly, whenever you had a solid hip bone, honestly.
Yeah, I think from a biology standpoint, the hip is the second strongest bone in the body, other than, like, it's second to the jawbone. So it's not like I'm sure the shoulder blade is a close third or fourth bone in the body, but I mean, you don't hear too many people saying they hit the pelvis, they hit the hip bone, and they never broke it. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but you never think that, oh, maybe I should make sure my arrow goes through that hip bone,
Well, and I'll say another thing. I had a guy, he recently just reached out to me. He's like, well, did you get buck fever, man? Because you shot that deer, blah, 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 where you're at, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you try self-filming a deer with the wind blowing at your neck. You don't know the whole circumstances of what the hunt goes on. I don't judge people for their shot. Yes, in the video it looks like a terrible shot, and I thought it was a terrible shot too. But when we gutted that deer was dead probably in the first 3 or 4 hours. No doubt.
I think it was, honestly, as much clotting and hemorrhaging that was in that cavity, dude. I think maybe hour tops it, and it was dead. Like, it first bed. I don't even think it was in a bed. Like, it wasn't an actual bed. It seemed like he just nose dived right down, and he just never moved.
Yeah, for the angle of the deer, yes, it was a good shot, by no means, but like the way I pulled the shot, by no means. But honestly, for us, and this is what everybody needs to do. Like, not most people are going to leave that deer lay for 6 to 8 hours. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to rush it. And I'm going to tell people this flat out. As the more I get older, as the more I have hunted deer, I'm going to give that deer the time, because I knew I for sure hit liver. I know I for sure hit guts. You're going to give that time, at least the time that you need to be. For a liver shot, I know is 4 to 6 hours. A gut shot's 12 to, I think, I personally give 12 to 24 hours for a gut shot deer, but I knew I hit liver because of the way the angle of the deer. You know what I'm saying? So if more people would do that, they'd find a deer. And we see that time after time again. The new hunters shoot a deer in the guts or they hit liver, and they're freaking pushing it in the 30 to 15-minute range, and they're pushing the deer freaking 500,000 yards past where they shot it at. They lose blood because it clots up because you don't like. We had no blood. You know what I'm saying? If I would have pushed that deer right away, like they did, honestly, I don't even know if I would have found that deer if I would have pushed it right away. So
Yeah, it would have been a rough day. I mean, and maybe it was just because you didn't have an exit hole. There was so much hemorrhaging, like the blood just clotted in it. But I really think it was dead pretty quick. And that goes to like, dude, if I ever shoot like a buck like that size or anything, unless I see it go down, I'm more than likely going to wait at least 3 hours before I look for 2-3 hours before I look for blood. Because like those type of bucks don't come every single year for most people. So why push it and potentially lose it, you know?
Yeah, I give props to Cody. I mean, I've hunted with him quite a bit, and one thing that he likes to do is rush right in there, no matter where the shot is. But I give him props for giving that buck that time.
And I think that's kind of why I like self-filming, because, or not even just self-filming, filming hunts. Like, what if Cody didn't have a camera, he would have probably seen something through his eyes totally different than what the camera caught. You know, maybe Cody was like, yeah, I smoked it, it's a dead buck, and went in there an hour, half hour after he shot, and then potentially might have kicked that buck up again. Whereas as soon as he shot, he looked at the film, sent it to people. You know, he was able to, and not that it's a bad thing, but he was second guessing the shot. So he took the time because he realized that it was potentially not the best shot, and it ended up being lethal, and it worked out. So that's why I really like filming in the hunts, because you see a whole lot more through the lens than you do through your own eyes as the shooter.
and to bounce off that, I agree 100%. As the time goes on, like I can tell by the, and Moss and I even discussed this whenever I hear the shot from the video. You can hear when that diaphragm's being punched. In the sound video, it sounds perfect. Honestly, I mean, I'm not saying perfect, but it sounds good in the video when we slow down frame by frame that you can hear the, and like there's different shots from like when you hit a gut shot to freaking to even like I think in the video it sounded like a punch your lung, and that's what made us encouraged to go in the 4 to 6 hour range for the liver shot because it sounded way better than the gut shot. That's what I will say that definitely helped us a lot from that aspect of it. So basically, we recover the deer, we get our footage. It was a great experience for me. I haven't got to score the buck. I'm personally, I don't think it's more than 115 to 120 this year, but I could be surprised. Has good time line, good brow time, like that's good mass all around. So I'm happy with that deer. And yes, I had bigger goals. I wanted to shoot maybe 130 to 140 next year, but it's my rutcation. I had good experience with the deer, and to bounce off of the whole experience too is, so my neighbor messages me. He's probably about 2 miles away from where I'm hunting at. He goes, "Dude, I had that buck on trail cam." I said, "There's no way. There's no way that you had that deer on trail cam." He sent me pictures. So the buck that I had video footage of from November 5th, that good buck, that buck came from 2 to 3 miles away from where I'm at. And the buck I harvested was 2 to 3 miles away from that. And like I told these guys before, I said, there's a hot doe in the area. This is why I went into the area, because I knew there's a hot doe in the area. So if you have a hot doe in the area, your trail cam's blown up, get in there as fast as you can. And that's what I took from this hunt is I knew there's a hot doe in the area. I took the trail cam footage. I mean, not footage, but trail cam pictures of this deer chasing the deer Friday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, those bucks are still cruising looking for that hot doe in the area. So that's what I took from the hunt. I got lucky and fortunate enough to harvest this deer, and I cannot complain about it at all. So my takeaway from the hunt is, if you have a hot doe on trail cam or you see a deer chasing does, you want to get in there as fast as you can. We can't hunt Sunday on PA. If we would have been able to hunt that Sunday in PA, I would have been in there Sunday in PA because I knew there was a hot doe in there Friday because I trophy pictures of the mature deer that I could have got shot at Saturday in there. So there's 2 days. 3 days would have been Sunday. 4 days, I just got lucky that there's a mature, decent deer in PA to still cruise around because I grunted and made noise. That he came from 2 to 3 miles away from the core area where he was located at. That I just got lucky and the deer came in the area. So that's what my takeaway of the hunt.
Hell yeah! I mean, I'd shoot a buck like that every year. Every time you go out, you're gonna learn something. We can all tell that Cody's maturing, and I think I'd give credit to him taking up the filming aspect, and I think that has a lot to do with him, you know, taking the time to make sure he does everything he can and whatnot. And it was a good hunt. I was glad to be there. I am still pissed because I was down there. I had my good camera out, filming the recovery, all this, and my damn mic wasn't plugged in. So I have all this good footage, but there's no audio. So I'm very pissed. And we'll tag the YouTube video in the show notes here when I post this podcast. But there's a weird ending on it. It is what it is. It's just for fun, but I still have those clips, so we can use them somewhere. So how about all right? So I mean, we covered Cody's pretty well. Obviously, congrats to you, Cody, on a really nice buck. Let's get into Hunter. This kid, I swear to God, makes it look so damn easy. Let's start with a little bit of backstory. I know we touched on it maybe a little bit earlier, but let's get into some depth on that.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say I make it look easy considering Utah's kicking my ass with elk season. But we had a lot of close encounters. But I was able to get out of work. The season ended, so took a layoff. I wasn't supposed to be home until the opening day of bear season, but I was able to take some time off and leave early Wednesday, which was putting me in late Thursday night. I hit some weather along the way, and I ended up not getting in until 10:30, 11 o'clock Thursday night, the night before the last day of archery season in PA. And I have a little streak going with myself that ever since I was 11 years old, I've killed a deer with my bow in Pennsylvania. So I was going to try my hardest to keep that streak alive. And ever since I was 13, I've killed a buck with my bow. And my dad, God bless him, dude, he was putting in a lot of time. He had a lot of good bucks in this area on camera. He stayed out of there the last 2 weeks, hoping that I was able to make it in. And yeah, like I said, I got in late Thursday night. Friday morning rolls around. I snooze my alarm, end up getting out of bed till 7:15. Not making it out to the woods till 7:30. And on my walk in, it was daylight. I knew there were deer in the area. I knew there were bucks. It was a pretty heavily traveled area. And I caught this deer moving through some pines in a thicket. And I couldn't see what it was. I could just see its legs. So I backed up to a clearing, and he ends up coming out, and I could tell it's a good buck. But at the time, he was probably 120 yards away, and I don't know what made me do it, but I just turned my head and let a little grunt out of my mouth because my grunt call was in my backpack. I had nothing packed. I was still using my elk pack at the time, all my clothes that were packed from elk season. So it was just a giant cluster. But he heard that, let out a grunt, and started to circle around me. And I was lucky enough that I had good back cover. I had a little cover ahead in front of me. And he came, I ranged a spot, adjusted my sight, thought he was going to hit a trail at 50. He ended up coming in at 4, cutting a little early. Had to readjust my sight, dialed down to 40, and I knew it was a little farther than 40, but not quite 50. And he gave me a perfect shot. He stopped right at the clearing. One thing is, like, it's a shot that I'm not going to take out of a tree stand. He was quartering to me, so I had to punch through that front shoulder. But with my setup, I didn't have time to change it to my whitetail setup. I was still using my elk setup, heavy arrow. So I felt confident in making that shot. So I ended up shooting him at 48 yards, quartering to me. He took off like a bat out of hell. I had good penetration. almost to my fletching, so I knew I was into where I needed to be. I took a step out around a honeysuckle and watched him pile up 40, 50 yards from where I shot him. And he ended up being a 17-inch 10-point, my biggest buck to date.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, it was a definitely a respectable buck, especially when you hunted for what, 15 minutes,
It was
45.
4 minutes. 4 minutes.
Oh, 4 minutes. Yeah, I
I,
mean, yeah,
I didn't even
that's
make it into my
respectable.
tree stand. I turned around and my truck was 90 yards away. So
Yeah. So I mean, that's uh, you can't beat that. You know.
no,
Um,
it was an awesome morning. My dad ended up coming up, getting pictures, and he made his way down into the stand that I was actually going to. There's a big scrape, community scrape. A lot of bucks are hitting it, and he was able to shoot a buck 2 hours from when I shot mine, probably 200 yards apart. So to
yeah.
double up with my dad on literally the last day and the only day I was able to hunt archery, that was just an amazing memory.
Yeah. You sent it into the group, and I'm sitting out in the woods, freezing my ass off, not seeing a whole lot. I'm like, that dick, you know. But I couldn't be more happier for you and your dad. I mean, I know you guys spend a lot of time in the woods. Pat was when I was down there with Cody. He was telling me a little bit about how his season was going. He said, "Yeah, I'm saving some spots for Hunter. Hopefully, he's getting out." And again, I couldn't be happier for you and your
That's
dad.
that's the part with me. I'm working and I had to go to work and freaking Hunter calls me. He's like, dude, I'm gonna make it for the last day of archery. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome. I was like, I hope you best of luck, man. And I'm freaking sitting there and I'm like, he's like, I'm just getting the stand. I'm like, dude, what the heck are you doing? It's 8 o'clock. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? And he's like, oh, I was beat, man. I just drove freaking so many hours. I'm like, you're nuts. I was like, I mean, that's the right. Like, I'm not down on it by no means. I'm like sitting there in the car. And I'm not even sitting in the car for 15 minutes. He's like, I'm going to stand. I'm like, hey, man, guess what? And next time I get a FaceTime call, I'm like, what the heck's he doing? FaceTime me like 15 minutes after he's in the stand. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And he's like, I shot one. I'm like, shut the heck up. You're joking. So then next thing you know, he's like, you sit right here. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You were legit. We're in the woods for 15 minutes of PA. You shot a deuce at 10-point. I'm like, screw you. Here I am. I go all year long, and Moss has freaking been hunting his ass off. Everybody in the group's been hunting their ass off. My freaking Hunter's in freaking PA for not even freaking 3 hours of daylight, and he already has a buck on the ground.
Dude, I wasn't even in Pennsylvania for 6 hours and I had a buck down. It was truly an awesome experience. Like I feel bad for you guys. You guys hunt your asses off and I come home and smack one 5 minutes out of my truck.
Not literally out of your truck, but just to clarify. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, dude, it happens. You know, there's a lot of luck into it. Not saying that it was luck. You were just at the right place at the right time, and I would probably do the same damn thing.
Yeah, I was fortunate. I was still shooting my elk setup to be able to punch through, clean through that shoulder and then center punch a rib and still get amazing penetration even with an expandable at that range. I was very happy with it.
Yeah, you got lucky there. I mean, hey, what type of broadheads are you using for elk and slash deer for this year?
So I have been a firm believer of the Grim Reapers. I shot them when they started coming out, and it's actually a company out of Utah. So I figured I'd. I didn't have a lot of time to shoot my bow this summer with work. We were really busy, so I ended up shooting a micro expandable 3 blade. It only has an 1.25 inch cut. So I was still very confident in the fact that I was still going to get that kinetic energy and the penetration I needed, even on elk, with it being such a small cut. But they fly just like field points, clean out to 120 yards. So I mean, I was very happy with how they performed. When I did punch through that shoulder, I didn't break any blades, no chips in the blades, no bent tip, nothing. I could take it out and probably shoot another deer with it. Not that I'm going to because I like to have fresh blades and fresh broadheads, but still in really good shape.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. Well, I can touch on my walks in the woods, I guess we'll call them. So, well, I kind of hit on the early season. Saw a lot of bucks this year. Kind of after November starts, trail cameras are picking up. Obviously, I'm seeing a lot more deer. I can't remember. Did I even take a week off? I don't think I did. I think I took the last day off. I knew that.
I
I might
think
have.
you took you took half days, man, because you were freaking mixing feed and getting ready for your distillery shit because you're getting your distillery stuff getting rolling right now.
Yeah, I think I actually just started working at 6 and just said, I'll be done at 2, and then I have the afternoon hunts. And then there's a couple spots really close to town here that we went to. We snuck in. We did see some bucks. Lots of opportunities. The one Saturday, it was the Saturday before the Sunday that we could hunt bow. I went out by myself. I tried to wake Taylor up. I was literally sitting there shaking her in the bed, and she wouldn't wake up. So I said, "Piss on you! I'm going myself." Walked out, went to the spot, and once kind of like November 3rd came, I kind of was like, you know what? I'm just going to try something new this year. I'm going to ground hunt, still hunt through some areas and see what I see, and if I see some good action, I'll work on it and sit there on the ground. And that Saturday, I walked through this one area. It's like a bunch of like open, old, maybe like logging roads. I'm guessing it might even be gas line openings. But I was walking through there just real slowly. I was bumping a couple does. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Get up on this hill, take a left on the road, and it's getting real thick. And I see like 3 or 4 does down there a little bit. So I like creep, kind of get to the side to get some good cover. And they ended up winding me, I think. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll just go and sit on a log right there for a little while because you never know. It's November. Buck might be behind it. Literally got to where the does were standing, and this nice little 8-point comes by. And I did put my release on my bow, and he popped his head out. He saw me. I could have shot him. And I'm like, that. And I just let him walk, dude. I don't know why. My objective for this year is to just keep my streak going. My streak is every buck that I get is just bigger than the one before. And the one that little 8-point was pretty similar to the one I got last year. And I was like, I'm sticking with it. Whatever. So I let him go. And then
I'm surprised by that. And that's not me being a ignorant person by no means, but I know you with the pump plan aspect, I'm surprised that you didn't squeeze the trigger. Yeah, that's just my personal opinion.
well, the way I look at it, you can't learn it unless you're hunting it. And if I'm shooting a small buck that, is the same that I already have on the wall, I'm done hunting pretty much. So I'm not going to learn as much as I can if I'm out there longer, if that makes sense. I look
Hey,
at things
Mon,
weird.
here's a question for you. When you're hunting off the ground and stuff, how do you go about
So
self-filming?
usually I ditch the handy cam, which is the camcorder, and I just have my GoPro. So, and I'm telling you, dude, it's hard because you'll see that deer for a split second, and then you don't even think about turning on your GoPro. So I don't have footage of that. And I'll be the first one to admit it. Like, sometimes you just don't film. And it is what it
Yeah, I
is.
mean, heat of the moment, you have more things on your mind. Like, where's this buck going to go? What range? Is he legal? Is he a good buck? I mean, you just have so many things running through your mind.
Yeah, and like I'll have the GoPro running for like 20, 30 minutes while I'm walking. Hopefully, like I'll catch a deer and on camera, and then nothing happens. But as soon as you turn it off to save battery, you're bumping deer.
That's one thing. That's one thing I will say about GoPros. They freaking battery life sucks so bad. Bad.
Yeah, I mean, I have a setup to where I can charge like one extra battery while I'm recording, but still, that's like take your bag apart just to get to the new battery and stuff. And sometimes I just go out and I just want to enjoy it. If I get it on film, I get it on film. If not, whatever. Because again, the way I look at this whole group thing is we just do it for fun. So
Yeah. So there's that. So basically your season was you had that winter counter with the 8-point.
well,
I harvested deer.
I'm not done yet. Hold on.
Oh, you're not done yet. Oh, there's more.
Yeah. So that next Monday I had to work, and my one buddy wanted to go. He was off work too, and I got out of work. I'm like, let's go hunting. Taylor was with me. We were driving, and I'm like, where do you want to go? To my buddy, and he's like, I don't know. I'm like, well, we'll drive around a little bit, but you got to decide by 3:30, because I'll just dump off a ridge and where I think the deer might be, and that's cool for an evening hunt. So I told him 3:30. Figure it out. We drove around to this one spot. We were pretty sure there was a person hunting there, so we went back. And I'm like, why don't you hunt right here in these pines? Maybe still hunt in there a little bit, and then we'll pick you up at the end of the night. We drive down this pad, dude. Swear to God, biggest buck I've ever seen in my life. Just standing there with 2 does. And he kind of trots off. He was going to the main logging road, gonna go jump across that, and we backed up, and I wanted to see where he was kind of going to see if we could get in front of him. And he crossed the road, went through like a small herbaceous opening, and then stopped right in the wood line with his does. I mean, dude, I'll show you the shed. It looks exactly like this buck. And he stood there, and then they like kind of walked off into the woods a little bit. I'm like, all right. Me and my buddy hopped out. I'm like, we're gonna try to get in front of these deer. And maybe it's what screwed us, but maybe not. We got into where I thought we were parallel to where I last seen them. It was kind of thicker, higher stem count area, but we got in there pretty quietly. Sat there for maybe 40 minutes. I'm like, I really need to know if he went a different direction. So I went straight back towards where Taylor dropped us off, walked down the road, and then I picked up his track and I followed it for maybe 30 yards, and I got to a really big scrape, and it was recently hit. I mean, there was moose tracks in it like that, and I got my binos up and I could see 3 butts, and I could tell one was a doe. I'm like, that's still them. So I got back to my buddy. I said, okay, you're gonna go to one more road down. I'm gonna go back to where I left him, and just kind of creep around in there real slowly and just try to course him to go that way. And it took my buddy. I gave him probably 15 minutes to get to where he needed to be. It wasn't a very far walk, and I slowly got into there, and I was like, all right, I know these tracks are here somewhere. And I got on his tracks, and I'm like, oh, he just went straight up over the hill. Followed the tracks for a while, and then there were so many deer tracks in this one area, I just lost them. So let me grab this shed, and you've seen this shed, Cody. It's a dandy, and I just measured it last night, the shed, and I can give you an estimate of what it would be. You suckers might think I'm lying, but I swear this is pretty damn similar. Okay, this is a 5-point half rack shed that my father-in-law found a couple years ago, and he just gave it to his daughter, which is my wife. So he doesn't want it. So I measured this last night. The shed estimated from my measurements was 68.25. So you double that, and I gave it a 16-inch spread. You're looking at low 150s.
Oh, I'll tell you this right now. I'll probably never shoot a buck 150, but I've seen a 150-inch deer. And anybody that shoots a 150-inch or bigger in PA, I give them props.
Bro, I'm just happy to see him. It gets you all warm and fuzzy on the inside. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, now that's at least they're out here,
It gives you a little hope the next time you go walking through there. maybe
Yeah.
you'll stumble upon them.
Yeah, and then so like we went back. So like me and my buddy went to where his last tracks were. We sat there for the rest of the night. Got into some like blowdowns, and we didn't end up seeing anything. So on our way out, though, I'm like, I want to definitely see where he was, where we originally first saw him. So it was just across the road down a gas well, and there's this highway that goes through there. I'm like, yep, this is where he is. And I look over in the cut, and there was 3 deer running away. So I don't know if he rapped on us somehow. I don't know. But that I actually set up a blind with my brother on the last day in there in the cut, and I saw a deer maybe 200 yards away, and that was it. So that's my season. It's been rough. It's been fun, but I'll kill something in a rifle. I hope.
Yeah, rifle season's coming up. I bet you're getting excited. I mean, even with the shitty weather, gives you a chance to get out, get some boots on the ground, and hopefully harvest a buck.
To be honest, I'm not very excited for rifle season. I don't know. It's not the same as bow hunting. My standards are going to still stay the same. Bigger than the last.
I'm just ready for some deer drives. I don't know about you guys, but we're all Hunter, me, and everybody that has a buck tag already filled, and we're ready to push some deer for somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited for rifle season. I mean, I don't take a rifle out. I mainly handgun hunt when I shoot my buck with my bow. But yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, so I think there's this one spot. That's the only camera I have out, and it's one of my cell cameras. There's been a couple bucks in there. They're nothing like crazy. They're, I don't know, maybe 110 inches, and trust me, I'd be happy to shoot one of them. And I think I'm going to go there. It's like a 14-year-old cut, so like it's very high stem. There's a lot of browse in there, but it's on the edge of like some giant boulders. If you actually go back to our YouTube video I did in August, it was just checking trail cameras. It was like it's one of our worst viewed videos, but that's the spot. I mean, there's giant boulders, and there's actually an exit route that is in between all the boulders and the cut. So there's been deer there almost every day. I think I'm gonna be on the south end of the cut, get up on one of those boulders, and unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to drag a blind up there because of the crappy weather, just so I can sit there all day without being like, all right, screw it. I'm gonna walk around and screw everything up. So that's my plan. I don't know if it's good. I'll probably second guess myself, but that's what I'm sticking to.
Hey, you never know if it's good until you actually get out there and figure it out for yourself.
That's the way I look at it. And there's a lease to the south of there, and there's private to the east, pretty directly actually. So if it actually is like an exit route to get to thick cover, I should see a lot of deer, or at
Yeah, it
least some deer.
sounds like a really good pinch point. Once
I
that
think,
private and that leaf starts getting pressure in rifle season, it seems like a pretty good thick pinch point for those
right.
deer to feel safe and move out of there.
And I think, Cody, I've sent you some pictures. Like I had a really big 8-point in there the day after my wedding, and he's never showed back up. But he's out there somewhere. This is probably, I don't know if it will focus. That's probably the biggest buck I got out there right now. That's on my camera, which, trust me, the first day I will shoot this buck. But yeah, I think that's pretty good coverage on the podcast. We've been running it for quite a while. I think we're getting tired. So as long as if you guys got anything to say, let's get it out.
Yeah, just good luck to everyone hunting PA's rifle season. Hope to see some big bucks down, and good luck to everyone in the group, whether it's a buck tag or just going out to fill some doe tags.
If it's brown, it's down, and make sure it's legal, boys and girls. And that's all I care about.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Non-Typicals podcast. Make sure to hit that follow, subscribe button on our Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. Thanks again, and get out there and shoot them big bucks.